1. J.K. Rowling in the Caffeinated Path to Magic. A young single mom sitting in a cozy corner of an Edinburgh cafe called the Elephant House. She's got a cup of coffee getting cold beside her, a worn notebook open on the table, and she's scribbling away like her life depends on it. That's J.K. Rowling, and she's not just writing any old story, she's building Hogwarts, one cup of coffee at a time. But here's what's really interesting about Rowling's cafe writing habit. She wasn't going there just because she liked coffee, though she did. She discovered something super important about writing in cafes that made them perfect for deep work. She'd bundle up her daughter Jessica in warm clothes, pack her basic writing supplies, just a notebook and pens, no fancy laptop back then, and walk through the chilly Edinburgh streets. By the time she reached the cafe, her mind was already swirling with ideas about magic spells and flying broomsticks. She'd order her coffee, usually the cheapest thing on the menu. She was really watching her pennies, find her table if it was free, and then something amazing would happen. The moment she sat down, it was like she'd put on an invisible cloak that made the rest of the world disappear. The cafe noise would fade into a gentle background hum, and the magical world would come alive in her head. Rowling had this super strict rule for herself once she sat down, she wrote. No playing around with her phone, she didn't have one anyway, no chatting with other customers, no staring out the window. She'd write until either her daughter woke up needing attention, her coffee was completely cold, her hand was too cramped to write anymore. She'd filled up her goal number of pages for the day. Sometimes, she'd get so deep into her writing that she'd look up and realize hours had passed. Well, we all know how that turned out. Those cafe writing sessions produced not just a book, but an entire magical world that has captivated millions of readers. Harry Potter became one of the most successful book series ever written, all because a determined single mom found her perfect deep work spot in the cafes of Edinburgh. You don't need a fancy office or expensive equipment. You just need a consistent place to work, a simple routine, the determination to focus deeply once you start, the ability to ignore distractions, and maybe a good cup of coffee. 2. The deep work revolution. What is deep work, really? Newport defines it as professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. But let's break this down into something more digestible. It's like the difference between paddling in the kiddie pool, shallow work, and swimming in the Olympic pool, deep work. Think of it this way. Sending emails and attending routine meetings is like fast food for your brain, quick, easy, but not particularly nutritious. Deep work, on the other hand, is like a gourmet meal that requires time, attention, and skill to prepare. It's the kind of work that creates new value, improves your skills, and is hard to replicate. Why deep work matters now more than ever. Here's where things get interesting. We're living in what Newport calls the age of distraction, where the average worker checks their email 74 times a day. Yes, you read that right. And the typical office worker can't go 11 minutes without being interrupted. It's like trying to read a book while someone constantly taps your shoulder, pretty much impossible to get into the flow. As our world becomes more distracted, the ability to do deep work becomes increasingly rare and, therefore, increasingly valuable. It's basic economics. When supply goes down and demand goes up, value skyrockets. Here's where things get really interesting. Newport presents a compelling paradox. In a world where deep work is more valuable than ever, it's also becoming increasingly rare. It's like having a superpower that nobody else is developing. Every day, the world is getting more distracted, more fragmented, and more shallow. But this isn't bad news, it's an opportunity. While others are dabbling in the shallows, you can choose to dive deep. The decision is yours, but remember, in a world where attention is the new currency, deep work isn't just a skill, it's your competitive advantage. 3. The 4 rules of deep work. Now that we've explored why deep work is a superpower, the question becomes, how do we train our brains to focus in a world built for distraction? Cal Newport offers 4 actionable rules to reclaim our attention and unlock our potential. Let's break them down. Rule 1. Work deeply. Imagine trying to write a novel at a noisy coffee shop, where every 5 minutes someone taps you on the shoulder to chat. That's what most of us do to ourselves daily. To achieve deep work, Newport emphasizes the need to create an environment and routines that support focus. Build focus rituals. Create a simple ritual to signal your brain that it's time to focus. Examples: clearing your desk, playing a specific type of music, or writing in the same spot every day. Carve out deep work blocks. Time management isn't just about doing more, it's about doing the right things. Newport recommends scheduling deep work in blocks, uninterrupted hours devoted to a single, high-priority task. Whether it's a 2-hour morning session or a single afternoon block, consistency is key. Rule 2. Embrace boredom. Here's a shocking truth. Our addiction to constant stimulation is killing our ability to focus. Newport argues that deep work requires mental endurance, and building that endurance means learning to tolerate boredom. Boredom as a skill. Newport suggests we can train our brains to handle boredom by resisting the urge to check our phones during every idle moment. Start small. Stand in line at the grocery store without pulling out your phone. Let your brain wander. It's in these quiet moments that creativity often strikes. The power of solitude. Solitude is where some of history's greatest ideas have emerged. Abraham Lincoln, for example, wrote the Gettysburg Address after hours of quiet contemplation. By carving out moments of solitude in our lives, we give our minds the space to think deeply. Rule 3. Quit social media. Here's a radical idea. What if you cut out social media completely? For many of us, this feels unthinkable, but Newport makes a compelling case for eliminating digital distractions. The attention experiment. Newport introduces the concept of a digital declutter. Take 30 days to quit optional online distractions, social media, YouTube, etc., and evaluate their impact on your life. The goal isn't to quit forever, it's to discover what truly adds value to your days. Selective use. If quitting entirely feels impossible, Newport advises being highly selective. Only use platforms that provide significant value, and set strict limits on when and how you engage. Social media isn't inherently bad, it's just a massive distraction if left unchecked. Rule 4. Drain the shallows. Finally, Newport urges us to minimize shallow work, the low-value tasks that eat up our time. The goal isn't to eliminate these tasks completely, but to reduce their footprint, leaving more room for deep work. Audit your time. Track your activities for a week to identify where your time goes. This will reveal how much of your time is spent on shallow tasks versus deep work. Delegate and automate. Once you identify your shallow tasks, ask yourself, can I delegate this? Can I automate it? For example, a tech executive Newport studied reduced his email time by half simply by setting up filters and automated responses. Set boundaries. One of Newport's boldest suggestions is to set strict work boundaries. For instance, limit email responses to specific times of the day or establish no meeting zones in your calendar. These boundaries free up time and energy for meaningful work. Together, these 4 rules form the backbone of a deep work strategy. They require discipline and intentionality, but promise transformative results for anyone willing to commit. But what happens when you start putting these rules into practice? That's where we turn next, the real-life stories of people who've mastered deep work. Ready to explore? 4. Bill Gates's Think Weeks. A secluded cabin located in the woods of the Pacific Northwest. No phones ringing, no meetings to attend, no emails to check. Just books, papers, and pure, uninterrupted thinking time. This was Bill Gates' secret weapon during Microsoft's most transformative years, his legendary Think Weeks. Every morning, Gates would wake up early, grab a pack of Diet Cokes, his favorite drink, and start reading. He'd sit in his comfy chair wearing his favorite sweater, surrounded by huge piles of paper. These weren't just random documents, they were special reports written by Microsoft employees who spent months preparing their best ideas, hoping Gates would read them. A nice lady would quietly bring him meals 3 times a day. She was the only person allowed to interrupt him, and even she wasn't supposed to chat. Gates would eat quickly, usually while still reading, then dive right back into his papers. The fun part? Gates wouldn't just read, he'd have conversations with the papers. He'd write all over them with his pen, sometimes getting super excited about ideas. If he loved something, he'd write yes in big letters. If he thought an idea was silly, he'd write something like "This is crazy," or "Who thought this was a good idea?" The Microsoft employees would later get their papers back covered in Gates' scribbles, kind of like getting homework back from a very smart and very honest teacher. During these weeks, Gates would read and think for almost 18 hours a day. That's like watching 9 movies back to back, except instead of watching movies, he was reading about new computer ideas and thinking about the future. During one Think Week in 1995, Gates had a huge aha moment. He realized the internet was going to change everything. Remember, back then, lots of people thought the internet was just a fad. He wrote a famous letter called the Internet Tidal Wave Memo, basically telling everyone at Microsoft, drop everything. We need to focus on the internet right now. This completely changed what Microsoft did and helped make it the huge company it is today. 5. Getting started, your deep work action plan. Now that you're inspired by the transformative power of deep work, it's time to roll up your sleeves and put these principles into practice. This final section will guide you through actionable steps to integrate deep work into your daily routine. Let's build your deep work action plan. Step 1. Define what deep work means for you. Deep work looks different for everyone. Start by identifying what activities require your most focused, undistracted attention. These are the tasks that move the needle in your personal or professional life. Actionable question. What's your most important work? Examples: writing a report, solving a business problem, mastering a skill. What shallow tasks can you minimize to make room for this work? Examples: responding to non-urgent emails, endless meetings. Step 2. Schedule deep work blocks. Deep work doesn't happen by accident, it needs to be planned. Use your calendar to schedule dedicated blocks of time for uninterrupted focus. How to start. 1. Choose your times. Find periods when your energy and focus are highest: morning, afternoon, etc. Start small with 1 to 2 hours. 2. Create a ritual. Signal your brain that it's time to focus. For example, clear your desk, light a candle, or play a specific playlist. 3. Guard this time fiercely. Treat deep work blocks as sacred. Say no to distractions, meetings, and phone calls. Step 3. Eliminate distractions. Distractions are the enemy of deep work. Here's how to eliminate them. Digital distractions. Turn off notifications, use focus apps like Freedom or Forest, and put your phone in another room. Environmental distractions. Find a quiet space or use noise-canceling headphones. Communicate to coworkers or family that you're not available during deep work sessions. Step 4. Train your brain to focus. Focus is a muscle. It grows stronger with practice. Newport emphasizes deliberate effort to resist distractions and improve your concentration. Step 5. Minimize shallow work. Audit your daily tasks and identify low-value activities. Use the following strategies to minimize shallow work. 1. Batch emails and admin work. Handle emails and minor tasks in designated time slots instead of throughout the day. 2. Automate or delegate. Use tools and team members to offload repetitive tasks. 3. Say no. Politely decline requests that don't align with your priorities. Step 6. Embrace boredom. Remember, boredom is your ally. Train yourself to resist the urge to fill every idle moment with mindless distractions. Action item. Identify moments when you habitually check your phone, waiting in line, during commutes. Challenge yourself to stay present instead. Step 7. Reflect and iterate. Deep work isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, it's a journey. Regularly reflect on what's working and what needs adjustment. Weekly review. Spend 10 to 15 minutes reviewing your deep work efforts. Ask yourself: 1. How many hours of deep work did I achieve? 2. What barriers did I face, and how can I overcome them? Set goals. Aim to gradually increase your deep work hours over time. As Newport reminds us, deep work isn't just about being productive, it's about reclaiming your ability to think, create, and live deeply. Start small. Build momentum. And watch as your focus transforms not just your work, but your life. Your turn. Take action today. 1. Block 1 hour on your calendar tomorrow for deep work. 2. Pick a single high-value task to focus on. 3. Eliminate one digital distraction, like turning off notifications. You're on your way to mastering the art of deep work. Let the transformation begin. Focus on what matters, eliminate what doesn't, and guard your attention as your most precious resource.
恭喜你，又听完了一本书。订阅以便不错过更多精彩节目，也别忘了分享给你的朋友，一起快乐听书学英语。